Hey everyone, welcome to our dive into one of the most mind-blowing stories in sports history. Today we're talking about Frank Hayes, a jockey who defied the odds in a way you won't believe. Let's roll back to 1888. This is where our story starts, with Frank's birth in Ireland. He later moved to the US, and this is where things get interesting. Frank wasn't your typical jockey. In fact, he wasn't known much at all. His world revolved around the stables, working with the horses he absolutely loved. He was more of a behind-the-scenes guy, a trainer and a stable hand. But hey, he had a dream, and he was sticking to it. Now picture this, the 1920s. Jazz is all the rage, and life is buzzing with energy. It's in this lively era that Frank's life takes a wild turn. Out of the blue, he gets this golden opportunity to race at Belmont Park. For a jockey, that's like hitting the jackpot. It's a huge deal. Frank, in his mid-30s by then, probably couldn't believe his luck. Racing at Belmont Park? That's the big leagues. But little did he know that this race would be one for the history books, in a way that's as tragic as it is extraordinary. So that's our guy Frank Hayes, a simple man with a big heart for horses, about to embark on a race that would etch his name in history forever. Stick around as we dive into this incredible story, where passion and fate collide, creating a legend that's lasted a lifetime. Alright, let's zoom out a bit and paint the big picture of horse racing in the early 1920s. Imagine this. It's the roaring 20s, everything's jazzed up, and horse racing? It's the bee's knees, the cat's pajamas, basically a really big deal. Racetracks back then weren't just about the races. They were the it places to be, a melting pot where everyone, whether you're dripping in diamonds or counting your pennies, came together. The excitement? Palpable. The energy? Electric. Places like Belmont Park, Saratoga, and Churchill Downs were the heartbeats of this excitement. Think of these tracks as the equivalent of today's mega sports stadiums. They were where legends were made, where fortunes were won and lost in the blink of an eye. This was the golden age of horse racing, and it was more than just a sport. It was a spectacle, a show of glamour, where the stakes were high and the drama was real. Our jockeys were the stars of the show, the celebrities of their time. Names like Earl Sand and Todd Sloan were on everyone's lips. They were the heroes on horseback, living life in the fast lane, quite literally. But let's not sugarcoat it. This world was tough. Behind all the glitz and glamour, it was a grind. Jockeys and trainers worked their tails off. The pressure? Immense. Every race could catapult you to stardom or send you spiraling into obscurity. Now enter Frank Hayes into this world. A guy from the sidelines, a trainer, not a star jockey, getting his shot at the big time. It's like your average Joe suddenly stepping up to bat in the World Series. Frank's stepping into this whirlwind of thrill and glamour at Belmont Park was like nothing he ever experienced. This isn't just any race, it's the race that turned Frank Hayes from an unknown into a legend. But before we dive into that fateful day, let's set the scene. Belmont Park, 1923. Picture it. The crowds are buzzing. The air's electric with excitement. Everyone's dressed to the nines, and the atmosphere is thick with anticipation. This is the big league, folks, and our man Frank is about to step into the spotlight. Now, Frank wasn't riding just any horse. He was on Sweet Kiss, a beautiful but not so famous horse. To many, they were the underdogs, the unlikely duo. But hey, every underdog has its day, right? The race starts, and it's a thriller from the get-go. The horses are off, thundering down the track, the crowd's going wild. Frank and Sweet Kiss, they're in the mix, keeping pace, surprising everyone. But here's where it gets unbelievable. As they approach the finish line, something extraordinary happens. Frank and Sweet Kiss cross the line first. They win. The crowd's ecstatic, but Frank, he's not moving. He's slumped over in the saddle. In a twist that sounds straight out of a movie, officials discover that Frank Hayes has passed away during the race. Yes, you heard that right. He won the race, but he wasn't even alive when he crossed the finish line. It's a victory and a tragedy all rolled into one. The reactions were a mix of shock, disbelief, and awe. It was an unprecedented event in horse racing history. Frank Hayes had just become the first and only jockey to win a race posthumously. So, Frank and Sweet Kiss crossed the finish line first, a moment that should have been the peak of joy for any jockey. But as we already know, Frank isn't celebrating. He's silent, motionless. At first, people think maybe he's just overwhelmed, in shock from the win. But the truth is something no one could have guessed. When the track officials and medical team rush over, they find something that turns a moment of triumph into one of disbelief. Frank Hayes, the winner of the race, had passed away. Right there, mid-race, his heart had given out. Yet, incredibly, He and Sweet Kiss had not only finished the race, but won it. Imagine the scene. The crowd's excitement turns to a stunned hush. It's a mix of confusion and awe. A jockey winning a race while, well, not alive? It sounds like something out of a tall tale. But it happened, right there at Belmont Park. Now, here's an interesting twist. Sweet Kiss, the horse, becomes known as Sweet Kiss of Death. A bit morbid, sure, but despite the nickname, she's never raced again. It's like she had this one incredible bittersweet moment and then gracefully bowed out of the racing world. This victory, as eerie as it is, puts Frank Hayes into the history books. He's the only jockey to win a race posthumously. It's a tragic but truly extraordinary legacy, and it leaves everyone who hears about it in utter amazement. Now let's talk about what happened after Frank Hayes' surreal victory. This isn't just about the aftermath. It's about piecing together a puzzle that left everyone baffled. First off, the big question: how did Frank Hayes win a race while, not alive? The doctor said it was a heart attack that got him during the race. Tough, right? Imagine the guy's heart giving everything for that one moment of glory. Talk about giving it your all. But here's where it gets a bit eerie. Some say it was the sheer excitement, the adrenaline of being in the lead that was too much for his heart. Others think the rigorous weight loss he underwent to qualify for the race played a role. Frank wasn't a regular jockey, so he had to drop some pounds fast to make weight. Not exactly the healthiest move, and it might have been a factor. Now let's not forget about Sweet Kiss, our four-legged hero of this story. After that race, she became something of a legend too. But like I mentioned before, she never races again. It's like she and Frank shared this one unforgettable moment, and that was it. It's both beautiful and sad, isn't it? This event, as you can imagine, sent ripples through the horse racing community and beyond. It was all over the newspapers, and people couldn't stop talking about it. I mean, how often does something this wild happen? Frank Hayes' win also sparked conversations about the health and safety of jockeys. It was a wake-up call in many ways, shining a light on the intense pressures and physical demands of the sport. Okay, now that we've covered the race and its immediate aftermath, let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. We're talking about the historical context and the lasting legacy of Frank Hayes' incredible, if somewhat eerie, victory. First up, the historical context. Remember, this was the 1920s. Horse racing was massive, but it was also a different world in terms of safety and health awareness. Jockeys back then were tough as nails, but they didn't always have the support or medical knowledge we have today. Frank's story, in a way, became a bit of a wake-up call about the risks involved in this high-stakes sport. Now, onto the legacy part. Frank Hayes might not have been a household name before that race, but afterward, he became a legend. His story is one of those unbelievable tales that people pass down through generations. It's a mix of triumph, tragedy, and sheer astonishment. In popular culture, Frank's story pops up now and then as a reminder of how unpredictable and fragile life can be. It's been referenced in books, documentaries, and even a few movies. The guy who won his last race and didn't live to see it. It's a story that resonates with people, not just because of how bizarre it is, but also because of what it says about the human spirit. But here's the real kicker. Frank's legacy is about more than just an unusual race. It's a story about dedication, about pushing limits, and about the unpredictable nature of life. It's about a guy who loved horse racing so much that he gave it everything he had, quite literally. In the history of sports, there are victories, there are tragedies, and then there's Frank Hayes. His story stands out as a testament to the passion and unpredictability of human endeavors. It reminds us that sometimes the most extraordinary stories are the ones that you just can't make up. Frank's story isn't just a wild tale from the history of horse racing. It's a profound reminder of the unpredictability of life and the resilience of the human spirit. It's about a man who, against all odds, achieved his dream, albeit in the most unexpected way possible. Let's talk about sports and mortality. Sports are often seen as a metaphor for life. They're about struggle, triumph, defeat, and pushing beyond limits. Frank Hayes' story takes this metaphor to a whole new level. It's like a poignant reminder that in the pursuit of our passions, we're all racing against time, often without knowing where the finish line is. But here's the thing. Frank's victory, as tragic as it was, also speaks to the idea of leaving a lasting mark. He may not have known it at the time, but his story became a legacy, a legend that continues to inspire and amaze. It's a testament to the fact that sometimes our greatest achievements can come from the most unexpected places. This chapter of Frank's life also makes us think about the spirit of sportsmanship and the bonds between humans and animals. Sweet Kiss, the horse that carried Frank to his final victory, played just as crucial a role in this story. Their shared moment of triumph, under such extraordinary circumstances, highlights the deep connection that can exist between a rider and their horse. So as we wrap up this incredible tale, let's take a moment to appreciate the lessons it offers. Frank Hayes' story isn't just about a race, it's about life, passion, and the unexpected turns our journeys can take. It's a reminder to chase our dreams, embrace the moments we have, and maybe, just maybe, leave a mark that lasts long after we're gone.